The cold night visitor John sat inside his small green tent, listening to the wind blowing outside. The night was freezing cold, and the forest was covered in white snow. John had come here for adventure, to prove to himself that he could survive. A night alone in the wild. He sipped his hot chocolate from a metal cup, but it did little to warm his shaking hands. It was so quiet. Only the soft sound of snow falling on the tent broke the silence. John checked his phone, but there was no signal. He looked at his watch, just past midnight. He tried to close his eyes and sleep, but the cold kept him awake. Shadows from the firelight danced on the tent walls. Somewhere far away, a wolf howled. Suddenly, John heard something strange. It was not the wind or an animal. It was footsteps, slow, careful, and crunching in the snow. They were getting closer. John held his breath, his heart pounding in his chest. Was it a wild animal? Was it another person? He remembered stories about bears, but this didn't sound like a bear. The steps were light. John sat up, trying not to make any noise. The steps stopped right outside his tent. The world seemed to go silent for a moment. Then, a soft voice called out, "Please, help, cold." The words were broken and strange, as if the person speaking didn't know English well. John grabbed his flashlight and slowly unzipped the tent. He peeked outside and gasped. In the dim light, he saw a girl. She was not like any girl he had ever seen. Her skin was light blue and almost glowed in the darkness. Her eyes were huge and shining silver. Her hair was white like snow, and she wore a strange, torn suit with blinking lights. She looked scared and weak, her breath visible in the icy air. John's first thought was that he must be dreaming. But the cold on his face and the fear in his heart told him this was real. The girl was shivering. She tried to smile, but her lips were blue from the cold. Warm? "Please," she whispered. For a second, John was frozen with fear. Was this some trick? Was she really an alien? But looking at her, he saw she was just scared and cold, like any lost person. He remembered his mother's words, "Always help someone in need." John moved aside and opened the tent wider. "Come in," he said quietly. The alien girl crawled inside, moving slowly. As she entered, John felt the air in the tent change. It was still cold, but it was also filled with a strange feeling like a quiet buzz of electricity. The girl sat in the corner, wrapping her arms around herself. John handed her his thick blanket. She pulled it around her shoulders and sighed with relief. For a moment, they sat together in silence, looking at each other. John could see she was young, maybe close to his age. He wanted to ask her questions, but he was too nervous. The girl reached into her torn suit and pulled out a small, glowing device. It looked like a piece of glass, shining blue in the dark. She pressed it, and tiny symbols floated above it, glowing in the air. John stared, amazed. Was it alien technology? Was he safe? The girl saw his fear and quickly hid the device. "Safe now," she said softly. "They not find me." She looked scared again, her eyes wide. John's mind raced. Who was she hiding from? Was someone looking for her? Outside, the wind grew louder. John thought he heard distant sounds like engines or strange voices. He tried not to panic. The tent felt smaller now, like they were hiding in a tiny boat in the middle of a big storm. John sat close to the alien girl. He tried to act brave, but his hands still shook. She looked at him with her big, shining eyes. She touched his hand gently. "Thank you, kind," she whispered. Her touch was warm, almost calming. John felt a little less afraid, but inside, he knew this was only the beginning. This cold, lonely night had turned into something much bigger. Who was the girl? What was she running from? And what would happen if her pursuers found them? John looked at the tent door, then at the alien girl wrapped in his blanket. He could feel that nothing would ever be the same again. Outside, the night waited, dark and full of secrets. The secret device. John sat in the tent, watching the alien girl closely. The cold outside was strong, but inside it felt different. There was a strange warmth, almost as if the girl herself was making the air softer and safer. John's heart was still beating fast from the shock, but now curiosity was stronger than fear. The girl was wrapped in his blanket, her blue skin shining softly in the dim light. She looked tired, her eyes heavy. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavy, but not uncomfortable. John was thinking of what to do next. Should he ask her questions? Should he hide her if someone comes? Would anyone believe him if he told them about this night? Suddenly, the girl opened her eyes wide. She seemed worried. She reached into her torn suit and carefully took out the small glowing device again. She held it close to her chest, looking at John with concern, as if asking for permission. John nodded slowly, showing he was not afraid. The device looked like a small crystal, bright blue and smooth. The girl pressed a button on the side, and once again, strange symbols appeared above it, shapes and lines John could not read. The symbols floated in the air, shining and changing colors. John stared, amazed. He had seen many science fiction movies, but this was real. The girl touched one of the floating symbols. Suddenly, a soft musical sound filled the tent. The device began to show images, pictures of stars, planets, and strange creatures. John realized these were memories or messages from the girl's world. He saw a beautiful city made of glass, tall towers and flying ships. The people in the images looked like the girl: blue skin, shining eyes, silver hair. John tried to speak, but his mouth was dry. He managed to whisper, "Where are you from?" The girl looked at him, understanding his question. She pointed to the images and said, "Far, far away, my home. Not Earth." She tapped the device again, and the pictures changed. Now the images were dark and frightening. John saw giant machines, fires, and angry aliens with red eyes. He saw the girl running, hiding, afraid. She pressed the device to her heart, as if remembering something painful. Tears came to the girl's eyes. She looked at John, her voice shaking. "Bad people, follow me. I run, I hide. No safe." She looked outside the tent, fear returning to her face. John felt a chill run down his spine. If those bad people were close, then they might come here soon. He tried to be brave for the girl. "You are safe here," John said, though he was not sure if it was true. "My name is John. What is your name?" The girl hesitated, then softly said, "Lyra." John smiled. "Lyra, it's nice to meet you. I'll help you. But who are the people chasing you?" Lyra shook her head, not able to explain everything. She pressed the device, and a new image appeared, dark shapes moving through the forest. John saw the same trees and snow as outside his tent. It meant the hunters were near. Suddenly, a loud noise broke the quiet. Something was outside, moving quickly through the trees. Lyra's eyes went wide with fear. She turned off the device and pulled the blanket tight. John grabbed his flashlight and held his breath. A shadow passed outside the tent, making the walls shake. Lyra whispered, "They come, please hide." She pressed her device one last time. This time, a blue bubble of light covered the whole tent. John could feel his skin tingle. He looked at Lyra, confused. She explained with simple words, "Shield, they not see us, safe for now." Outside, the shadows stopped. John could hear strange voices, soft clicks and sharp whispers, not human at all. He could see dark shapes through the tent wall, looking for something. His heart pounded. He wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. After a few minutes, the sounds faded away. The shadows left, and the forest was quiet again. The blue shield faded. John and Lyra looked at each other, both breathing hard. They had survived, but the danger was not over. Lyra looked at John, her voice soft. "Thank you, friend." John nodded. He was scared, but he knew he had to help her. The night was still long. John wondered what would happen next, but he promised himself he would not leave Lyra alone. Outside, the snow kept falling, hiding their tracks and their secrets. The hunters arrived. John could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he remembered the dark shadows outside the tent and the strange clicking voices. He was scared, but he did not want to show Lyra his fear. She had trusted him, and now he felt responsible for her safety. The tent was quiet. Lyra was sitting with her back against the tent wall, holding the small blue device close to her chest. Her eyes were wide open. She listened carefully to every sound outside. Sometimes she looked at John, and he could see that she was still afraid. He tried to give her a small smile to make her feel better. Hours passed slowly. The cold night felt never-ending. John checked his watch. 3 a.m. He heard the wind blowing and branches creaking. Then suddenly he heard a noise, a sharp snap, like a branch breaking under someone's foot. Lyra tensed up. She touched John's arm and whispered, "They are here." Her voice was barely a breath, but John understood. He sat very still, holding his breath. The tent walls glowed softly from the moonlight outside. John could see 2 strange shadows moving near the tent. The shapes were tall and thin, with long arms and big heads. They did not walk like humans. Instead, they moved slowly, as if searching for something. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness. John's heart raced. He wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The hunters were too close. Lyra squeezed the device, and the blue shield appeared again, making a faint humming sound. The air inside the tent felt thick and strange. The hunters stopped right in front of the tent. John could hear them talking in a strange language, clicks, growls, and whispers. One of them pressed something to the ground. The snow sizzled and melted. It seemed they were using some kind of scanner to find Lyra. Lyra's eyes were filled with fear. She shook her head, her lips moving as she whispered in her own language. John wished he could understand what she was saying. He reached out and held her hand, trying to give her some courage. Suddenly, one of the hunters touched the tent wall. The blue shield flickered for a moment, and John felt his heart stop. Would the shield hold, or would they be discovered? The hunter pulled back and growled. It spoke to its partner in its strange tongue. The other hunter pointed a device at the tent. It made a low, buzzing sound, and John's ears hurt from the noise. Lyra's device glowed brighter as she tried to keep the shield up. Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. The hunters seemed confused. They walked around the tent again and again, scanning, clicking, and searching. But the shield worked. The tent looked empty from outside, just a small lump in the snow. Finally, the hunters gave up. They stomped away, angry and frustrated. John and Lyra listened as their steps faded into the darkness. When they were sure the hunters were gone, Lyra let the shield drop. The tent was silent again. John breathed a sigh of relief, but he could see that Lyra was exhausted. Holding the shield had taken all her strength. She leaned back, her eyes closing for a moment. John gave her some water from his bottle. She drank it slowly, her hands shaking. "Thank you," Lyra whispered, her voice weak. "You saved me." John shook his head. "No, you saved both of us," he said. He was amazed at her bravery. He wanted to know more about her and why the hunters wanted her so badly. Lyra tried to explain in simple words. "They want to catch me, my power, my people. I ran away. I don't want war. I only want peace." John listened carefully. He realized that Lyra was more than just a visitor. She was someone special, someone in danger because she stood up for what was right. He felt a new respect for her. As the sky began to turn lighter, John knew they could not stay in the tent any longer. The hunters would return, and next time the shield might not work. He looked at Lyra and said, "We have to leave. We need to find a safe place before the sun comes up." Lyra nodded. She took his hand, trusting him completely. Together, they packed the tent as quietly as possible. John put out the fire and covered their tracks in the snow dot as they walked through the silent forest. John looked back at the place where his simple camping trip had turned into something much bigger. Now he was part of Lyra's fight for freedom. The cold night was ending, but a new adventure was just beginning. The truth revealed. John and Lyra walked quietly through the snowy forest as the sky began to change from black to gray. The night's danger was not gone, but the rising sun brought a little hope. John looked at Lyra's tired face. She was weak, but she kept moving. Her eyes showed both fear and courage. The snow crunched under their boots. John checked behind them again and again, but the hunters were not in sight. Still, he knew they could return at any time. They needed a place to hide. After almost an hour of walking, they found an old wooden hut hidden between the tall pine trees. It looked empty. John pushed open the creaky door, and they stepped inside. There was dust everywhere, but it was dry and safe. Lyra sat down on the floor, exhausted. John closed the door and put a heavy stick against it. He wanted to make sure they would be safe for now. Inside the hut, everything was quiet. John sat across from Lyra. He could see she wanted to say something. He waited. Finally, Lyra took a deep breath and opened her hand, showing him the blue glowing device. "You saved me," she said softly. "Now I tell you truth." She pressed the device, and it glowed brighter. Strange symbols and images appeared in the air. John saw planets, stars, and a big city made of shining glass. He saw Lyra standing with other blue-skinned people, smiling and happy. "My home very far," Lyra began. "My people. We are peaceful, but others, they want war. They want my power." Her voice shook a little. "I am special. I can make energy, heal things, protect others. The hunters, they want to use me for fighting. I ran away. I don't want war." John listened carefully. The pictures changed. Now he saw dark ships, fire, and the hunters chasing Lyra. She looked so scared. In the images, just like she did last night. "I am not soldier," Lyra said, her voice trembling. "I want peace, not battle, but my people, my family. They are prisoners now, the hunters. They hurt them." John felt his heart break for her. He understood now why she was so scared and why the hunters wanted her. She was not just another alien. She was important, maybe the only hope for her people. He looked at the blue device in her hand. "What does this do?" he asked quietly. Lyra smiled a little. "This device, it keeps me safe. It can send message to my friends in space." But her smile faded. "It is losing power. I can use it a little more, but not much. If it stops, I cannot hide. The hunters will find me." John thought hard. He wanted to help, but he was only one person. He was just a boy from Earth. How could he help a powerful alien escape from dangerous enemies? He tried to be brave. "We will find a way. Maybe we can charge it, or find your friends. I won't let them take you," he said. His words surprised even him, but he meant every word. Lyra looked at him with new hope. She touched his hand, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, John. You are good. I trust you." Suddenly, there was a sound outside the hut, a branch snapping. John and Lyra both froze. John quickly turned off the light from the device. They waited, hardly daring to breathe. Outside, two dark shapes moved through the trees. John peeked through a crack in the wall. He saw the hunters searching the area, their red eyes glowing in the early morning light. They were getting closer. John whispered, "We have to hide." Lyra nodded. She crawled behind some old boxes in the corner. John squeezed himself into a dark spot under a broken table. They held their breath as footsteps came closer to the hut. The hunters stopped outside. John could hear their strange voices, clicks and hisses. One of them pushed the door, but the stick held it closed. They knocked hard, but didn't break in. After a few tense moments, the footsteps faded away. John and Lyra stayed hidden for a long time, not moving, not speaking. Finally, when the forest was quiet again, they crawled out of their hiding spots. Lyra looked at John and whispered, "I am sorry. Danger follows me. You should leave. You don't need this trouble." John shook his head. "No, I want to help." We are friends now." Lyra smiled, a real smile this time. John felt a new courage inside himself. He knew he could not let the hunters win. As the morning sun shone through the dirty hut window, John and Lyra began to make a new plan. They would not run anymore. They would fight for Lyra's freedom and for peace. The escape plan. John looked at the morning sun peeking through the small window of the hut. The forest outside looked peaceful, but he knew danger was still near. Lyra sat beside him, holding her blue glowing device tightly. She looked scared, but there was also hope in her eyes. John remembered what Lyra told him. Her people were prisoners. The hunters wanted her power, and her device was running out of energy. They could not stay hidden forever. If the hunters found them, there would be no escape. John knew he had to act fast. He took a deep breath and looked at Lyra. "We need a plan," he said. "We can't hide here for long. Is there any way to call your friends with your device?" Lyra shook her head sadly. "Device, very weak. Need more energy." "Only one try left," she explained. Her English was broken, but John understood. They had to make this last chance count. John started thinking. He remembered seeing a big hill nearby, higher than the trees. Maybe if they climbed it, Lyra's signal could reach farther into space. He told Lyra his idea. She listened carefully and nodded. "Yes, good plan. Must hurry." Before leaving, John found some old clothes in the hut. He gave a jacket and a hat to Lyra, hoping it would help her blend in if someone saw them from a distance. Lyra smiled and put on the jacket, even though it was too big for her. John felt a little better seeing her smile. They packed their things. Quietly, John checked outside to make sure the hunters were gone. The forest was still and quiet, only birds chirping in the trees. They left the hut, moving quickly but carefully, trying not to leave any tracks in the fresh snow. As they walked, Lyra explained more about her people. "We love peace. My family, scientists, healers, not soldiers. But some aliens want to use us for war." She looked sad. "If they take me, they win." John felt angry. He could not understand why anyone would want to hurt someone as kind as Lyra. He promised himself he would protect her, no matter what. After almost an hour, they reached the bottom of the hill. The climb looked hard, but John was determined. "Can you make it?" he asked Lyra. She nodded bravely, even though she was tired. Step by step, they climbed the snowy hill. John helped Lyra over the rocks and through deep snow. Sometimes she stumbled, but he caught her and helped her stand. The wind was cold and strong at the top, but they finally made it. From the hilltop, they could see the whole forest. The trees looked like a white sea below them. John saw something moving far away, two small figures, searching the ground. The hunters were still looking for them, but they were far behind. Lyra took out her blue device. She pressed the button, and it glowed brighter than before. She held it up to the sky, her eyes closed in concentration. Strange symbols and lights appeared in the air. John watched, amazed, as the device made a soft humming sound. Suddenly, the wind grew stronger. The device sent a beam of blue light into the sky. Lyra whispered in her own language, sending a message across the stars. She was shaking, but she did not stop. John kept watch, making sure the hunters did not see them. He felt nervous, but he also felt hope. Maybe someone would hear Lyra's call and come to help. After a few minutes, the device started to fade. Lyra lowered her hand, breathing hard. "Message sent," she said softly. "Now we wait." Just then, a distant shout echoed from the trees below. The hunters had seen them on the hill. John saw them running, moving quickly toward the hilltop. "We have to go," John said, grabbing Lyra's hand. They started running down the other side of the hill, sliding and stumbling in the snow. The hunters were fast, but John and Lyra moved quicker, using the thick trees for cover. John led Lyra through the forest, trying to make as many turns as possible to lose their pursuers. The sound of the hunters' strange voices grew louder. Lyra was getting tired, but John encouraged her, "Just a little further. Don't stop." Finally, they found a small cave hidden by fallen branches. John pushed the branches aside and helped Lyra inside. They sat together in the darkness, breathing hard. Outside, the hunters searched the area, but the cave was well hidden. John and Lyra stayed silent, hoping not to be found out as night fell. Lyra squeezed John's hand. "Thank you, John," she whispered. "You are my friend, my hero." John smiled, even though he was scared. He hoped Lyra's message had reached her friends. For now, all they could do was wait and trust that help was on the way. The final chase night fell quickly, and the forest grew colder. Inside the small cave, John and Lyra sat close together, listening to the quiet sounds outside. The only light came from Lyra's blue device, now so weak that it barely glowed. John tried to stay awake, his body tense with worry. He knew the hunters were still searching. He could feel it. Suddenly, a sharp noise broke the silence, a branch cracking under a heavy foot. John's heart raced. He peeked out of the cave and saw red lights moving through the trees. The hunters were closer than ever. "We can't stay here," John whispered. Lyra nodded, fear showing on her face, but she trusted John. They crawled out of the cave, moving as quietly as possible through the deep snow. Every step was slow, careful, but they had to keep moving. The forest was full of shadows. John and Lyra slipped between trees and over fallen logs, trying to hide. Sometimes they heard the hunters' voices, strange clicks and hisses. The red lights seemed to follow them everywhere. John kept Lyra's hand in his, guiding her in the dark. Soon, the hunters found their tracks in the snow. They shouted in their alien language and began to chase John and Lyra through the trees. The sound of footsteps grew louder and closer. John looked back and saw the tall, thin hunters running with long strides, their glowing eyes fixed on them. John's mind raced. He remembered an old river nearby. If they could reach it, maybe the fast water would hide their tracks. "This way," he whispered to Lyra, pulling her toward the sound of rushing water. The snow became deeper as they ran. Lyra was tired, stumbling, but John never let go of her hand. "Just a little further," he said, encouraging her. His breath came out in white clouds. Finally, they reached the river. The water was fast and icy. John knew it was dangerous, but it was their only hope. He found a fallen tree stretching over the water like a bridge. "Can you do it?" he asked Lyra. She nodded bravely. Together, they bounced on the log and crossed to the other side. The log shook under their weight, but they made it across. Safely. Behind them, the hunters reached the riverbank. They shouted in anger, their lights flashing. John and Lyra hid behind a large rock watching. The hunters tried to cross the river, but the water was too strong. One hunter slipped and fell in, getting swept away by the current. The others shouted, frustrated, and turned away. John let out a deep breath. For now, they were safe. But he knew they could not rest yet. Lyra's device buzzed quietly. She looked at it, hope lighting up her face for the first time that night. "Signal. Answer," she whispered. The device glowed a bit brighter, and a small holographic image appeared. A symbol from Lyra's world. "My friend's coming soon." John smiled. "We just have to survive until then," he said. They moved deeper into the forest, always keeping the river between them and the hunters. Lyra was weak, her steps slow. John gave her the last of his water and tried to keep her warm with his jacket. As the sky turned gray with the first light of morning, John heard a new sound above the trees, a low hum, almost musical. He looked up and saw a shape moving in the sky, shining with blue lights. Lyra saw it too. Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled. But just then, the hunters appeared again, running along the river's edge. They fired strange, bright beams of light at John and Lyra. John grabbed Lyra's hand, and they ran as fast as they could through the trees. The ground shook as the hunters' weapons hit the snow around them. The blue ship hovered lower, shining a protective beam over John and Lyra. The hunters tried to break through the light, but their weapons had no effect. Lyra's friends had arrived just in time. A door opened in the ship, and a ramp slid down. "Go!" John shouted. Lyra ran up the ramp. John followed, turning to look at the hunters one last time. The ship's door closed, and the hunters disappeared from sight. Inside, Lyra's people welcomed her with hugs and kind words in their own language. John stood quietly, amazed at the strange ship. Lyra turned to him, smiling with gratitude. "You saved me, John. You are brave and good." John felt a mix of relief and happiness. He knew the adventure was almost over, but he also knew his life had changed forever. The rescue and goodbye inside the alien ship. John looked around with wide eyes. The walls glowed with soft blue lights, and the air felt clean and warm. Lyra's people spoke in a gentle language, their voices musical and kind. Some wore long silver robes. Others had shining badges on their arms. John could see that Lyra was finally safe. The ship rose higher above the snowy forest. Through a clear window, John watched the trees grow smaller and smaller. The hunters on the ground looked up, helpless and angry, as the ship disappeared into the clouds. Lyra hugged her friends and her family. She cried happy tears and spoke quickly in her own language. Everyone was excited to see her alive and safe. One of the elders, a tall woman with long silver hair, came to John. She bowed her head and placed her hand on his heart. "Thank you, human friend," she said in careful English. "You saved our Lyra. You are very brave." John felt shy but proud too. He looked at Lyra and smiled. She smiled back, her eyes shining. Soon, the ship's captain invited John and Lyra to a special room. There was a round table with food and warm drinks. The captain explained, "We received Lyra's message. It was weak, but we found her because of your courage and quick thinking. You gave her hope when she had nothing left." Lyra looked at John and took his hand. "You did not run away, even when you were scared. You are not just my friend. You are my hero," she said softly. John felt a lump in his throat. He never thought he would be called a hero by an alien. He was just a normal boy who tried to help someone in need. The ship flew higher, passing through the atmosphere. John saw the stars and the curve of the earth below. For a moment he felt small, but also part of something big and important. Lyra's family thanked John again. They gave him a glowing stone, blue and warm to the touch. "This is a token of our friendship," Lyra explained. "If you ever need us, hold it tight and think of me. I will hear you, no matter how far away." John put the stone in his pocket, promising to keep it safe forever. After some time, the ship returned to Earth. The captain landed it quietly in a hidden valley, far from any towns or cities. "It is safer for you here, John," the captain said. "Humans are not ready to meet us yet, but we will never forget your kindness." It was time for goodbye. John and Lyra walked together to the open ramp. Snow was still falling outside, but the morning sun made everything shine like gold. Lyra hugged John tightly. "You changed my life. I will always remember you," she whispered. "One day, maybe our worlds will meet again, peacefully, as friends. John nodded. He felt both happy and sad. He knew he would miss Lyra, but he was glad she was safe with her family. He watched as Lyra and her people entered the ship. The ramp closed, and the ship lifted off quietly, rising into the sky until it disappeared among the clouds. John stood, alone in the snow, holding the glowing stone in his hand. He walked back through the forest, feeling different, stronger, braver, and more hopeful. He knew that his life would never be the same again. He had seen another world, made a true friend, and learned that kindness could cross any distance, even between stars. Back home, John tried to return to his old life. Sometimes when he looked at the night sky, he wondered if Lyra was looking back at him from her faraway home. Whenever he felt lonely or afraid, he held the blue stone and remembered their adventure. John's story spread through his town, how he survived a cold night in the forest, but no one knew the real truth. Only John knew what had really happened, and he kept Lyra's secret safe. The world was big and full of mystery. John hoped that one day humans and aliens could meet as friends. Until then, he would always remember the cold night when he found a visitor from the stars and helped change her destiny forever. The end.